I'm wondering if the ELPA has any sort of like talks, discussions with players that are going towards retirement to prepare them for that next step and give them avenues to explore.
Yeah, we started really early on. I mean, we're only now in our fourth season, basically, so we're still a very young organization. But one of the let's say the pillars, or one of the things that we focused on is the retirement, or things that players can do after career. And we've done periodically seminars that talked about that, among other things. What to do after career and how important it is to find the things that push you forward and that draw your interest besides basketball. And we had experts coming in and talking about this. Then we have a so-called well-being program, which is run by a sports psychologist, Mar Rovira, that is an individual base with players, that players can go to her and talk about any kind of issues they have. And it's a lot connected about how to fill up the free time and how to find things that interest you. And then the third thing is our collaboration with the MBPA. So a part of our activities is also giving our members opportunity to go to MBPA seminars. We have an agreement that a couple of slots are let's say, open for our guys. And they've used them in the past, pre-pandemic, of course. Now we're picking up these talks again as they are picking up their programs. And most of them, if not all of them, are all meant for second careers. Whether it's a front office seminar they do, whether it's coaching seminar, real estate seminar, business seminar, it's about the second careers and where your interest is and learn about it. Because it's easy to say, well, find the interest or find something that interests you. But what is that? So it's important, I think, that players have these avenues of getting into many different things without financially sacrificing anything. Like learn about it. See if, I don't know, restaurant business is for you. Do you actually enjoy it? Do you know what it means, what it takes? Real estate, tech seminar, coaching. Do you really want to be a coach? Like, do you know what it takes to be a coach? It's great to watch, all big NBA yearly coaches on the sideline, calling plays and making, and winning games. But do you understand what actually it means, So
yeah, so you have programs like this, and my there's older players obviously that have to prepare for this. But what do you see the role of younger players at the ELPA? Like, what impact can the younger players have going forward? Because you guys achieved already certain steps that you can also talk about that are early adapting and early achieving, and the players didn't even realize that. You told me in Belgrade. So what role and what significance do the young players have in the union like this?
Well, the first thing for us is explaining actually the players what we do and who we are. It's kind of like when I went to the NBA, when I had the first Players Association meetings, I didn't differentiate NBA and NBPA. Like, I didn't know what it was all about. So I think the first important thing is educating the players, the reason why the Players Association exists and what benefits it can bring to the player. And then in connection with that, one of the first things that we try to do is prepare young players for their life as a professional. And that's a part of what we do during the Final Four and ANGT tournament is and learn and teach them about the traps and the benefits and the negatives and so on about that transition, which is not always easy. So I think as we grow as an association, I think it's going to be very important that the young players coming in start to understand what we do and who we are and how we benefit the players, because the previous generation didn't have that. So we had to go, when ELPA was founded, through the first season or 2 seasons, really explaining to players for those players that didn't understand it fully, like what we do. And there's still, let's say, we're still in these growing pains with some players who don't fully understand it, because the culture of associations is not as big in Europe, or pretty much non-existent in many countries compared to the USA and American sports. But the benefits are definitely there, and having players having their own voice within any competition is, I think, extremely undervalued and extremely important. And I think in Europe, for too long, that's been neglected, and it has kind of been pushed aside. I mean, the main protagonist not to have a voice kind of sounds strange, right? Like, you're the main guys, but you don't have nothing to say how anything functions within the league. These two things don't really go together.
It's counterintuitive. Like, it should be. Is it fair to say that most players don't realize how powerful their voice is?
That's a great point. I think that players don't really, on an individual level, I would say some do, or maybe even many do, their own thing that they do, and the recognition they have when they try to do a business or walk into a restaurant and this and that. Like, I'm the Barca player, I'm Madrid player, I'm, but collectively, I don't think all players fully understand yet how much it can be achieved and how much it can be improved. And that's something that early on, when we started making these improvements and changes in EuroLeague, the players started realizing, that together we can do more, and the players can have better standards, better conditions, more rights, better protections, and so on and so on. And that's something that the players on one hand didn't understand early on and didn't believe it can be done, just because the culture was so different. Like, clubs are the predominant entities, and players, as you know, as a player, you don't really have much to say, right? You do whatever the club does and the league does. That's it. And that's
club and coach are the controlling factors.
And that's something that changed. And it's not about, and we're still having this problems with some teams in EuroLeague who see us as a threat. Some clubs, and it's not about that at all. And that's something that we want to have these conversations to make them realize it's not about going against the league and going against the club and trying to mess everything up just so the players can be on top. Sure, we want to protect the players and help the players, but it's about growing the league and growing the competition, whatever the competition is, whether it's EuroLeague or down the line, whether it's going to change or grow or evolve. But it's about helping collectively to make it a better product. That's just as important, because the better the product is, the more successful the league is, financially and otherwise, the more benefits the players are going to have if they work collectively. And that's where we're coming from. And that's the disconnect that we see still with some clubs in the league.
And the fans receive a better product too. I mean, everybody, it's better. Like the coach,
it's a win-win. It's a win-win in the end.
It's a win-win. Obviously, the achievements I think that you guys had are individual rooms, right? Then the practice schedule. It was the practice schedule somehow. After games, recovery after games.
There's many different rules that we were able to put down. A lot of it we copied from the NBA, CBA. I mean, in regards to the players, to the practice rules, is there's shorter training camp now. It's 5 weeks max before the first official game. It used to be unlimited, as you know. It used to be this two or 2.5 long training camps or preseasons.
In the forest running.
Exactly, running in I'm not gonna go into those stories, but but yeah, that's in the past, So but when it comes to practice rules, yes, 1 practice a day, but it's not, for us, it's not so much about trying to limit the clubs and the coaches. It's not. It's about building that trust. Like, why? Let's find the balance. What makes most sense? What is actually better for the players, which is then also better for the club? What's that balance that we can find? It's not about, okay, now ELPA is trying to limit the coaches to work. Not true. Not the point. Not the point of it. How can we protect the players' health? How can we prolong the careers? And how can be the balance between what the coaches feel they need and what the players feel they need? And where can we find each other? But in connection to that, the improvements we added it's a long list, So it's not just single rooms. It's remove stickers from the court and second medic.
That's the one I wanted. That was my next topic. Stickers on the court. Go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, it's. We felt that was extremely important. That was actually one of our first. I wouldn't say demands, because it's not like we knocked on the EuroLeague's door and say we demand something. It was about recognizing the issue.
It's noticeable. It's
noticeable. It's about, why do we feel that the stickers should be gone from the court? We understand it's a financial benefit for the club. I understand that, but how can we improve it? Let's then paint the free throw circle, the mid circle. Let's do more circles. Let's do more around the 4 lines. More advertising. Let's focus more on digital advertising. Like, we'll have players do more appearances if they have to. Like, let's find ways to clean the court so we don't have injuries, which even this season happened in some of the domestic leagues. And the logic behind it, I think it's very simple. Like, if you have a special player that you pay a lot of money for, as a club, are you really willing to put him, quote unquote, on ice every game and risk an injury? Because then you have to pay this player and you have to pay the new one you're going to bring in. It's a double issue, right? And this conversation started early on, and after, I think, a season or 2 of ELPA existing, we were already made an agreement to remove that. And then, second medical opinion is a standard now in EuroLeague. In our time, you could not really ask for a second medical opinion. If you did, you had to do it kind of behind the club's back, and then the club would get pissed off, and then it would become an issue. Now it's a standard thing. Overdue payment system. If salaries are late, we report to the league. There's a system behind it, how to protect the salaries and get the salaries sooner, and so on and so on. The list is very long, but there's definitely a lot of things we did early on, but we still want to go further and introduce the league-wide insurance for players. And down the line, my big goal for players is pension. That's also something that hopefully the league is going to be financially healthy enough in the future to accept that as a part of the deal, and that's going to elevate, EuroLeague. It's going to separate EuroLeague even more, not just within basketball, but within other sports as well.
Yeah,
and
that's
so again, talking about the benefit for the league. If you have a sports league that takes care of the players and is giving the players all these benefits, players perform better, the product overall is better, and the image of the league grows. Instead of, a league where everybody knows that the players are being kind of much, treated badly and so on and so on. You don't want to be a part of that as a fan, as a sponsor, whatever. So this is all the things we're trying to do to elevate the league and to help the clubs also, from the player side.
Yeah, it has to be a fair play issue, right? It has to find like common denominators to agree upon, so so both parties don't feel like it has to be, I don't know if it can be ever 50-50, but it has to be some give and take. Then you give up some practice time.
It is. And a lot of times we have situations and players call us and say, hey, but our coach had a super long practice, blah, blah. And I say, you guys lost a couple in a row. And of course, coach needs his time to change things, to add things, to, at the end of the day, show who's the boss, whatever. We're trying to tell him, please try to be patient in this. If this repeats, then of course we'll make it a bigger deal and we'll go through the league to regulate this. But sometimes it's about finding this balance and understanding what situation you're in and not to demand too much as a player. And a lot of times when you achieve something, there had to be a give and take. So it was always about getting what's more important to players and maybe giving back to the club something that is important for the club, but not as important for the player. So it's about these trade-offs. And at the end, it's about me or players getting more and clubs getting more, and that's how you elevate the standards of the league.
Perfect. Yeah, it's also, when you practice as a player, you don't realize what the coach is thinking, how much the coach is feeling, and especially with the schedule these days, it's so hard to implement everything you want to implement in the practices because the practice times and the practice days are less and less. So the question becomes, where is the limit, right? Where do you draw the line? And do you think that going forward, and like I just hear rumors about the systematic shifts that are about to happen, but do you think there's a world that we can find at some point where the calendar will be fixed and that we can have a healthy calendar for all players to be happy with the practice time, and the coaches to be happy with the practice time, and the games to be balanced out and not to have so many games? I think Barcelona played like 17 games in 34 days. I think at one point it's 36, something like that. I mean, it was crazy. So that needs to be,
especially with COVID and postponements that happened. That became even bigger burden for players. And then they had to really compact the games in a very tight schedule. But I think that I think the things it's been a very difficult season within EuroLeague. Politically speaking, I mean the EuroLeague has many issues. Clubs management and the battle is inside of it, and one of them is scheduling, and then FIBA agreement on national team games and stuff like that. My personal opinion is that I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and worse in the sense that it's going to be even more issues that are going to be internal and more power struggles. But I do hope that this worse comes now and it gets through the summer, and then in the next season we can go into a direction of fixing things up. I think that the way situation has been in EuroLeague over the past 10 or 12 months is not sustainable. The league needs to get a clear leader and clear leadership, whoever that is, same management or different management. And at the end of the day, from the player's perspective, if I put myself completely out of the picture, it doesn't matter. The league needs a clear path, a clear plan, like we spoke about earlier. Having a plan and knowing the direction, then it's easier to follow. But I do think that within a certain time frame, I would say the midterm, in a couple of seasons, I would hope there would be an agreement on scheduling with FIBA and regulating this better, because right now it feels like everybody's pulling in their own direction and the players are in the middle. And you have those guys who want to play for national team, but they can't, and they would like to play for national team, but on an ideal schedule when they don't have to be focusing on the club's competition and so on and so on. So the players are being, I sometimes say in a joking way, but it's kind of true. It's kind of like they're a kid to parents that are divorced. It's like one arm here and one arm here, and both are like pulling you. And the worst thing is putting pressure on the players and saying, "Hey, what do you want?" Well, it's not no clear answer. The player wants to respect his contract and play for the club because that's where he earns the money. But he also wants to play for national team. And ideally, these two sides need to sit down, come to an agreement, come to scheduling, with the players having a seat at the table or having their say. And if those three sides, FIBA, EuroLeague, the players, at the end of the day, make an agreement that all agree to, the product is going to be a win-win-win for everybody.
Yes, we're all hoping for a unified European cathedral. If I may go back to my metaphor, that's the cathedral we're all hoping for, and we're building, and we're hoping that it comes together, because it's really the most fun league to watch day to day in terms of like competition. The competitiveness that you feel in EuroLeague is second to none. Like you don't see the intensity at the NBA every game in, game out. And forgive me for saying that, but it is that's like the EuroLeague model in terms of competitive nature. The significance of each game is just so much higher, and you can sense it. So I'm glad you mentioned also the stickers on the court, because they contribute to a lot of injuries, that drops in quality. Mm-hmm. And I hope that they can somehow fix the digital advertisement, somehow to add more tools to that.
That needs to improve, and I believe it will as the technology improves. I think they're going to start doing more of these things. Now everything is so digitalized. And I think that's where the future opportunities lie for sponsors to be seen even more, but without endangering players. Mm-hmm. That's for too long. That's been, and also because we didn't have the digital progress in the last couple of decades. It was, and you played, games I played some games that the court was more stickers than the wooden floor. It was like, what are we doing here? It's been bad, but it's been improving, and the happiest I am to see that some other leagues and competitions are copying of what we do, meaning the cleaning up the court. Mostly the Euro Cup teams, they started doing that without us asking for it in Euro Cup, but they start doing it, and it's so great to see. They were not there was not obligatory for them to do that, but they started doing it. So our hope is that it's like a pyramid system. If your league is on top, then the improvements we make are going to trickle down to other leagues and competitions, also on domestic level, because they are beneficial for the product at the end of the day.
ELPA as influencers, huh?
I never envisioned it like this, but if it happens, then yes, I like to see, because at the end of the day, sure, we're focusing on EuroLeague players, but me as a former player, like I always like to see any player having better opportunities to perform and to play and to extend their careers. And we had some really good conversation with domestic player associations and what we've done, and try to explain them how we do things and learn from each other. And I think this cooperation is so important. Not everybody sees always eye to eye, and there's still some people who see ELPA as as too much of a disturbing factor. That we stepped in and we just try to take over, and I don't know what. The people that know us and that they get to know us, we see that we're all about collaborating. It's all about working together, because at the end of the day, if you look at it from a very basic perspective, it's sports, it's basketball, and we all love the same thing here, right? So let's grow this thing together.
Love it.